Hello and welcome back to our second episode of Real Estate in Africa. And welcome back, Nissi. Welcome back, Grant. Nissi is the founder of Grow My Home and our Pan-Africanist, as we call him. Grant as the founder and CEO of Hand in Hand Group and real estate expert in Kenya and around the world. And we have heard last time your dream, your passion, your vision that was exciting. And all those who watched and listened hopefully said, yes, I want to be part of it. And since you're joining, I guess you want to be on the journey with us. So that's great. And we heard just the sentences I remember is like a passionate statement. No one should live in a tin shed. That's a really passionate sentence and statement, which probably most would agree with. Or Nissi, in a more broader scheme, making real estate affordable in Africa. That's the motto of Grow My Home. And yes, we want to be part of it and we are on a journey. So today we're going to talk about, so how do we start and how can it work? And today we want to look at the asset of land in Africa. And the catchphrase for today is you cannot go wrong in investing in land. Don't know whether you said it, Grant, or Nissi, one of you, but you both believe in it and you have experience with it. So I would say, tell us a bit more about it. Why is land so important? Get us started on the topic of land, which is so important in Africa, all around the world, but has changed a bit in the West. But in Africa, it's hugely important still. Please, some of you, get us started on it.
Okay, thank you, Johnny. I don't recall whether it was Nissi or myself, but as you rightly say, I think we both agree. Um, the issue of land is, first of all, it's physical, so it's tangible. You can touch it. It's not Bitcoin. It's something that you can actually go and physically see. But as the population grows, land doesn't. And therefore, land historically, and I anticipate going into the future, it will always be in demand. It'll be in demand for various different uses. But clearly, particularly in Kenya, there is population growth, which therefore means there's demand for land for housing. And therefore, land will always appreciate in value. It has been in the 25 years that I've been in Kenya, it has been my experience. And so you might say, well, if it's grown in 25 years and has it plateaued, then will it not grow again? And the response to that question is that it will always grow in the long term. You could have little blips. So what I mean by little blip is that if it overheats, and there's perhaps in the cities, there's a lot of demand too quickly, and it pushes the price of land up, and then things regulate because of a recession or because of the climate or because of whatever, and it comes back down. But long term, it will always go up. So land is a solid investment that will always increase in value as long as you're not in a forced situation to have to sell it in the short term, is my perspective.
Nissi, please.
Yeah, okay, thanks, Grant. That's 100% agreed. I think in most of Africa, land is really so many things. You know, you can see all the struggles about land issues around the continent, and you ask yourself why. And I just thought about it. You know, land is spiritual to a lot of people. You know, land is food because people eat from their land. Land is what do you call it? Accommodation. What's that other word for it? You know, a roof over your head because you
Shelter.
get shelter. Correct. Thank you so much, Johnny. You know, because that's where people get the pieces of materials to build their house, even at the most basic form. You know, land is money, like Grant had said, because people can convert it into money. They can use it as collateral. They can, you know, trade it to send their kids to school or to feed or one thing or the other. Land is dignity, you know. So as people grow, especially in many communities, one of the things that they show their wealth or growth or whatever is land ownership. Of course, land is culture, land is inheritance, The one thing in many parts of Africa, you're just born and you have a piece of land. I was thinking about some pieces of land we have in my rural area where my father was born. I mean, it's a few hectares of land. We just had it by being born. And they ascribe it as family land, and everybody has their share, and everybody passes it to the next generation. And of course, land is identity, because people are identified where they come from by their land. So when you put all this and probably all the other things, the economic aspects Grant has said together, it becomes one of the most valuable things in a society. And so that's part of including the population and all that. That's part of what drives its value and sustains its value, at least for the foreseeable future.
Well, land is a lot of things we hear, and I can see that. It's interesting because to me, when I grew up, it wasn't that strong, and it still is not that strong if you live in an urban setting in the West. There's a different aspect to it. But I'm wondering, so we're talking about land. I mean, we think we're not talking about those who have a lot of land. I mean, they might not watch here and they know already the value of land. But those who want to have land or maybe have a piece of land, only something small. And I was wondering, Grant, you made a strong statement. You said it will always increase in value. And I'm still wondering, from a perspective of the West, I once had a story. I was in India and we helped someone there. And he said, there's a piece of land, it's amazing, and he will buy it. And if we give him the money, we did give him the money, he did buy it. And then he found out so many things. It was so far away. Then there was regulations like he wanted to pig farming that wasn't allowed. And then when we visited, and then we said, sell it again. Oh, it's nobody wants to buy it anymore. So is it always valuable? So my experience was like, I'm not so sure. Maybe you want to specify that, or maybe touch on the example. It was a real life example, actually. I'm saying. So both of you, I'm not sure from my perspective. Like back then, I was in Germany, and now I'm back here too. It's like I'm not so sure whether land is always safe. Help me out.
So, Nissi, would you like to go first this time?
Yeah, that's a good one. Thanks. So
Yeah.
land is not always valuable. There is dirt land, there is wasteland, there is all kinds of land. So I think one has to qualify valuable land. However, one of the things Grant pointed out is that because of rapid urbanization, very often invaluable land becomes valuable in the mid to long term. Yeah. So and then Johnny, the thing you said about the city context and all that, it's very interesting that even people who live in the cities in most of Africa will aspire to have a piece of land elsewhere in the rural area. So that's also a factor that's, so the guy who lives on the 9th floor still wants to have something where his feet can touch the floor somewhere. So yeah, but I think one of the things we are doing here is to try to guide people to be able to differentiate between valuable land and land that will only be valuable in maybe 200 years. I think there is a skill to that. And so your Indian story might have been that when the person was buying the land, he did not have the skill to be able to determine that he was buying valuable land. I guess he must have learned from his experience, because experience is a good teacher.
So Jonny, I feel that you've raised an important question and highlighted an important point, which in a sense, possibly Nissi and I both glossed over in our first statements. And so it was important to highlight it. Clearly, you need to do your research. There are crooks out there selling land, just as there are crooks out there who will put their hands in your pocket. So you can't just walk into Kenya or Nigeria or South Africa, meet a guy at the airport. He says, I've got a piece of land for you. I think it's going to be so valuable. And if you listen to the podcast with Grow My Home, you'll know that all that can happen is it will go up in value. And so he sells it to you at 10 times the market price. It's in the middle of nowhere. And it's actually on the top of a swamp. So clearly there are caveats, or there are conditions that you need to be very wise about. And we'll talk about, I'm sure you will talk about title and ownership a bit later on, because that is a very significant challenge in Kenya. So if you're buying land, and I endorse what Nissi has said, is because of urban growth, that within, I have no idea what the statistics are or what the algorithm is, But because of our urban growth, you are always going to get the cities growing. And as cities grow, there is going to be demand for land, for residential, for offices, just for whatever you want in a city. Where I stay in Nairobi, when they built the apartment that I stay in, the limit was 4 floors. And so those apartments were built in, I don't know, about 15 years ago, and the limit was 4 floors. Now today, the limit is 17 floors. And we've become like a dwarf development in the area as people are building 17 floors all around us. Now, what does that tell you? What it tells you is that the land has become significantly more valuable because of the return that you can achieve by either 17 floors of residential or 17 floors of commercial. Next door to us is a bank. And we know one day some developer is going to come along and go, there are 40 apartments in the complex, and go, here, guys, we need to buy you out. And we also know that there'll be 2 people who go, no, we've lived here all our lives, and we're not prepared to sell under any circumstances, regardless of how much money you offer us. That's just another little side story. My point being, and the point that Nissi is making, is that with urban growth, you are always going to get cities increasing in their floor area, if you like, for want of a better term, and therefore the demand for that land is going to increase just through necessity. I think the statistics in Kenya are something that they need to build 200,000 houses a year. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. I'm not sure if that's correct. And they haven't been doing that for years. so that deficit is getting bigger and bigger. And you can't, whether, we could have a discussion about urbanization, whether it's good or bad or whatever. The fact is it's happening. So regardless of how we debate it, that is what is taking place. And so, Jonny, you're right to highlight that you can get caught out, and definitely you can get caught out. In actual fact, another example of ours was where we were buying some land. Before we'd gone to look at it, it was they were offering us an acre, and when we went and visited, the bottom quarter acre was actually in a swampland. And you're probably never going to, well, not without a significant investment, you're never going to recover that land. So do your due diligence and your research and find people you can trust, not just some person at the airport who goes, yeah, I've got a piece of land.
Grant, that one of the biggest developments in Nigeria is actually a piece of land recovered from the ocean. About Eco-Atlantic. So they pumped millions and millions of tons of sand into the ocean over very many years, and now an entire new city is there. So that's how much they need land. Humans need land, that we're recovering it from the ocean.
Indeed. So maybe we'll invest in our swamp.
Thank you, Grant, and Nissi also for differentiating. And yes, and you said someone you trust, but I even there want to add, it's not just about the trust, but also about the skill, because I trusted the guy back then and realized later he must have not have had the skills to do that. So having this in mind, yes, trust is almost a non-negotiable. With every company, you have some trust wherever you build it up from. But Nissi, when you look for it, let's make it specific. When you look for a piece of land or someone comes to you with an offer, you have many people approaching you, or you're always on the lookout. What are the parameters you look at? Give us a rough idea so we learn a little bit what to watch out for. And of course, we don't become experts by knowing the list. You still need to qualify all these parameters. But at least give us an idea what to look for or ask about.
Yeah, that's the word Grant used, was your homework, and that's it. What are the subjects in your homework? You always want to look for the title. What's the title deed to the land, relating to the validity of the title, and that in itself, in some parts of Africa where there is a proper database and land registration system, that's fairly easy. But in other parts, it can be quite a tricky thing around the laws of the land. So you always would want to cross-check outside of, I like that example Grant gave. The land sellers are like car sellers. They say very flowery things. So you always want to cross-check outside of the person trying to sell the land to you. So that's one. But other things, I mean, you need to check things like the cost of the land and then look at surrounding costs so that you don't get it's overpriced. I mean, you need to take time to do that. In some places, it's easy because, and it's getting easier and easier in many parts of Africa because of technology and digitalization. So you can see price trends and historic price trends. So cost is important. I always advise you should try to check the cost of owning the land. You know, there are council fees and rates and taxes. You could buy a piece of land and then discover that it was dumped into your hand because it's too expensive to maintain, or it's a swamp that, like Grant mentioned, that has no income value, but yet it's a piece of land that the council is charging money on. So that things like that. Then, of course, proximity and location. I mean, there can be land anywhere. There can be land in the city, and there can be land outside of the city, but you always want to look at proximity. A very important one that one has learned over the years is that your ability to oversee the land is important. So sometimes people jump into buying a piece of land without thinking of the system to oversee that land. And sometimes it becomes too far to go view, or there is no management system, or somebody has pieces of land strong over the city. And just the cost of going from the north of the city to the south of the city and the time and all that is huge. So these are some of the little things one has to look into in being able to buy a piece of land.
Thank you. Grant, would you like to add something? What most of us probably have heard at some point with real estate is location, location, location. That's what they always say. So that probably since land is also real estate. Grant, a few words about location, what to look out for.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I mean, infrastructure is important. What is your access to mains water? What is your access to electricity? What is your access to the main sewerage system? All three of those you can overcome them. But if you've got access to the municipal services, then clearly that is far more economical. So that's a good point to look at. Also, to look at the overall, I don't know what it's called in Kenya, but the government plan, if you like. We bought a piece of land in an area where we were told there was a road coming, and we bought this piece of land. It must have been 20 years ago, and our attitude was the land was so cheap that if the road came, then happy days, and if the road doesn't come, well, we haven't actually lost so much money, and I'm sure we could probably sell it for what we paid for it or a little bit more. And just in the last year, that road has come, and as a consequence, the land value has gone up significantly because our land actually touches the tarmac road. So therefore, you need to understand what's planned, but also be prepared that what is talked about might not ever happen, or might not happen in our lifetime, which is quite feasible. So to say there aren't risks would be naive. That it's not fair to say that. But if after my experience in various different areas and locations in Kenya, we have never lost money on land. And it has gone up multiple times in some areas. So that's a track record, if you like, of 25 years in Kenya, where perhaps you could pay us as a consultant to be your land advisor.
Yeah, and I think that's a good one, Grant. Actually, you should find a land advisor that is not the person who is selling the land to you.
Yeah,
I think that's actually something you should do, and then it will lower your risks quite significantly. I think what you were saying was the government master plan. And in some countries, if the road actually runs through your land, they actually have amounts of money that they pay you or through your farm. So you actually make good profit at times by just owning a piece of land and the government runs through it. Then the government pays the market rates. And usually they say the kind of plants you have on the land or the kind of stuff you have on the land. So I know we'll talk more about it, but one of the strategies usually is try and get a piece of infrastructure or cash crops on the land, and you get more money from the land. So your property advisor tells you these kinds of things so that you don't just own the land, but you position the land such that when the master plan happens, it's valuable to you.
Yeah, I'd say that's exactly the same in Kenya.
Yeah.
But you also, what I think is important, and I think Nissi, you referred to it, is that you don't want to buy a piece of land that is so remote that you never go and see it, because anything can happen to it. So you need effectively a caretaker if it is rural, but you need to have connections that other people aren't consuming your land whilst you're not there. But I still would stand by our original statement that land will always go up, but you need to do your due diligence. You need to look at what the government are planning. You need to compare it with 10 other pieces of land that are for sale in the same area, and to see what the market price is, because easily you can get a person who sees you and thinks, oh, this guy's got money. I'll just double the price today. So you've got to be aware of all of that.
Yeah, that's great, because now I was thinking, how can I do that? And we will come back to, because if I have someone there already like you, Grant, it's perfect. Someone with a track record, some trust. I mean, I trust you personally, but even the track record is something that builds up trust. You know, we all need to have some parameter to build up trust, and it is the person, but it's also the competence. So I think we will come back at the end of this episode. We will introduce something where you can actually, our listeners can actually, or watchers can actually participate in something, in some land. I guess, Nissi, you have something for us where we can actually, then I would suggest, and we come to that, take that offer, look at it, and use the parameters that have just been given to us and check them. Don't just trust, but use because if it's reliable, then nobody minds that you check. If people don't want you to check, then be careful. But we'll get to that. The same as buying a used car, which I'm doing at the moment. It's the same principle. If the guy doesn't want to be checked, then don't buy the car.
The difference there, Jonny, is I can guarantee your car is going to go down in value from the moment you buy it.
That's right.
Over the years, I have looked at cars that could appreciate, and I bought what would be classified as a classic car once, and then the engine blew up and it rusted, and basically it almost dissolved. So a car is definitely not an investment.
No, I agree. We just talked about the process of getting it is similar. Otherwise, it goes in opposite directions. I fully agree on that.
That's right.
So land is definitely an asset. We could go deeper, and maybe in other episode we go more technical and deeper. But just a quick question: when we look, Grant, you usually speak from the perspective of Kenya, and Nissi, at least Grant assumes he speaks from the perspective of Nigeria. But what is there in the different countries, like at the moment, Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa? That's where we're operating. And is there differences? Is something to be aware of? You could maybe quickly point out.
Well, definitely, and obviously I can't speak for Nigeria, but definitely in Kenya, the whole genuineness of the land title is important. So you can even get a forged land title. So a seller could be selling you a piece of land with a land title that they've actually forged, and so you have to do your due diligence in that regard as well. You need to go to the county records. You need to every parcel of land has a number reference, and you can check out if the person. Quite often, what you've got is the person who's selling it isn't actually the owner. so they're selling a piece of land that they have no right to sell. And in Kenya, you even get plots of land where somebody's put in a stake, this is not for sale.
I've seen that.
So the legitimacy of the title is very important. I mean, and again, even if you go through a lawyer, that needn't necessarily be a safeguard. We have worked with the same lawyer for 25 years. We're people like that. Once we find people we like, we stick with them. And so our lawyer has given us good advice, but and we've never been in a situation where the title has become disputed. But also, you get situations where the government changes the laws, and you have to then change your ownership. It's an administration thing, but that is very important, that you do understand that you have got clean title, and the person selling the land is the legitimate owner of the land.
Mm.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So, sorry, if I may add to that, I was just doing a quick Google search now to find out how much of the land is titled in different African countries. In South Africa, it's about 90%, which is similar to the UK. So it's easy to find a land title. There might be fraud here and there, but it's very, very rare. There's a proper land titling system. There's a proper independence check system you can do. Sometimes you need to pay a little bit of a fee, and you will see the history of the land going back as old as possible. In Kenya, it's about 20 to 30% of the land that is registered.
Right.
In Nigeria, it's 3 to 10%.
Oh, wow.
So those are the kind of things you deal with. In Nigeria, there are instances where there's what they call the certificate of occupancy, which is the final title. There are instances where in a whole lifetime it's not given because only one person, a governor, only one person can sign it. So it's not given. So people people rely on other forms of titling, cultural, traditional, R of O, stuff like that. So it's more like an understanding when people are doing land transactions in those places. There's a general understanding that at some point you will get a certificate of occupancy. So these are some of the things you need to walk through, and you need legal advisors and people like that to help you walk through those things. Some of the cities are improving their land titling and working on it. Usually, it is easier to be defrauded in the cities, like the example that was given before, because of high demand and high fraud. Usually, in the rural areas or in the semi-rural or semi-urban areas, the social and cultural regulation is stronger. So it's actually harder to deceive people. But I remember a rule of thumb growing up. This is in Nigeria. They said if you buy a piece of land, you dig on it and do something the next day, immediately after you pay for it. So if you dig on somebody's land, the community would come out immediately and say, hey, are you a thief or something? And you would be able to recover your money before the other guy spends it. So I don't know whether that is that severe, but it has formed the way people generally operate to say show presence of land on the land immediately. So if there is crisis, you can recover the process. So that's from a Nigerian context. But from a South African context, you can buy online or via reputable property agencies. There's a lot of them. And it's easy to be able to transact through all these options.
Well, that's cool. I'm learning a lot here. We are learning a lot here. Thank you very much. And I remember the story that Nissi you told. I don't know, was in the last episode or another conversation about the land that you bought, and then you could sell it for so much more money. So there's a lot of ROI in the land, of course, with risks always. You cannot guarantee it. And as you said, Grant, the timeline is important. If you want quick money, land is most likely not the asset to go for. But if you're patient, if you don't need it for a certain time, then it might be a very good investment. But that's just ROI. That's just technical. I want to go back to our last conversation we had, where we talked about the dream, we talked about the vision, and maybe there's people out there who want to invest and are now more and more convinced that Africa is a good country to do that, also with land. And but how can investing in land make the difference we talked about last time? Where's the impact? How do you combine it?
I started out life as a socialist, And then as I began to interact with economics, I came to the conclusion that I was a capitalist with a socialist mindset. And what that means is that actually I believe in capitalism, but it needs to be managed by people who have a mindset that every penny, every shilling, every cent that you make, you don't own it. That in actual fact, yes, you may well have an ability to make money, but the person next to you may not have an ability to make money, and that's, in one sense you'd say, well, that's their problem, but on another sense you'd say, well, is that fair? And therefore, my response to you, Jonny, is that we should use our best understanding, intelligence, resources in order to make money, but have a mindset in order to share the benefit that we are able to achieve. And therefore, everybody talks in Kenya that developers make 30%. It's just not true. Although nobody believes me that it's not true because I'm a developer, and they think that I'm trying to fool them. But the challenge is, and we touched on it before, is if I'm going to build a house, what do? Do I buy a piece of land in a strategic position? I build a house at the least possible cost. So I am very shrewd on how I buy my materials. I pay my workers as little as I possibly can in order to maximize my profit margin. And then when I've maximized my profit margin, I might feel a little bit of compunction that I should give something to the poor. But I'll keep probably 95% of it for myself. Or do I actually pay my workers a better rate out of the margin that I possibly could have made in order to, if you've employed 30 people to build a house, that you've then enhanced 30 people's lives. You've enhanced 30 people to be able to pay their own school fees. You've enhanced 30 people that you're now paying for their medical care. You've enhanced that those 30 people probably have families of 3, 4, 5. You've enhanced 150 people. And so the multiplying effect of using your ability and using your skill can then empower other people in the process that you do. And so why we would consider for hand in hand that it's social impact investment is because there should be multiple bottom lines. There should be that we're creating training to facilitate the next generation to become craftsmen in construction. There should be that you're not getting away with paying the lowest wage, but in actual fact, you're facilitating them to pay their own bills rather than them being dependent on a handout or a food bank. And that you're actually, in everything that you're doing, you're contributing to both well-being and the economy. I don't know if that answers your question, but I just feel that what is happening, particularly with AI right now, and that's a massive subject altogether, but I remember going to the first lecture on AI where it was saying what will happen is that in 10 years' time, we'll all be able to work 3 days a week, but earn the same money. Well, the reality is, no, what will happen in 10 years' time is that the business people will be earning the same money and you'll be earning 3 days' money. And therefore, you always, as a person that is intentional about making a difference in people's lives, never lose that intention. And I would like to think that after the many years that I've been in business, I have never, and I pray that I will never lose that intention to have a multiple impact in any project that I do.
Excellent.
Thank you. I think it's good to get the bottom lines. I like that. I've heard them many times that there's different ways of returns, not just the money return. And Nisi, maybe you can add to that. When I invest in land, how do you plan to make impact with that? Or how can I, as an investor, make
what Grant
impact with
said
that?
was what Grant said was so intense. I didn't feel like speaking on top of it. We need to ponder on it a bit. But when he was talking, I remembered a parable we used to have back in Nigeria, and we used to say, when the poor have nothing else to eat, they'll eat the rich. So if you're not thinking about social impacts, you will soon have a community or a society that you cannot live in yourself. So in many of these transactions, in using land as a form of social impact, purchasing land, making it easier for people to be able to own land. That's one of the ways of using land as a form of social impact, creating programs that can allow people to, these are programs that are profitable and viable, but they can allow people to be able to own their own land. You're also giving people a sense of ownership and preserving your own future, your own safety, your own security. So I think, yeah, and in addition to that, I mean, like has already been said, the profitability of land makes it such that you have liquidity over time to be able to, create jobs, create wealth, create space for farming, do the multiple offerings that land does.
I still have to dig a bit deeper because I don't get it yet as in my mind. So if I buy, I understand this, and that is a whole different conversation. We'll talk about this more when we build and do houses and different houses, how ways of financing people, rent to own, fractional ownership, all of these things. I see the impact there. But how is the impact is there an impact, a direct one? If I just buy a piece of land in Kenya, that's great for me, isn't it? I mean, and that's fine, and it could end there. There's nothing wrong with that. But is there anything else I could go to anybody? Why should I do it with you guys? What is, are you just another land broker?
A leopard can't change its spots.
Again?
A leopard can't change its spots is a common African saying. Our challenge, I think, is the responsibility that we all have, no matter what it is that we're good at, to be a contributor to the world in our responsibility to not just look after my small corner, but to have a world perspective that we're in this together with people that will probably never meet. But for me to stamp on your head in order to be better off is just immoral. and therefore, why does land I have a big issue with we're obviously focusing on land, but when land goes up in the UK, and then people, particularly people who have bought farmland, and then they sell it for development, it goes up multiple times. And yet they have an issue with the government taxing them. And I'm thinking to myself, but hang on a minute, it wasn't that you invested in that land and therefore made it more valuable. It's purely where it is and the demand for housing in the UK. So therefore, we have to have a bigger perspective to anything that we do. And therefore, in one sense, we on Grow My Home, we should be training the generations of tomorrow that there is a far bigger perspective to a single financial bottom line. And therefore, it isn't you. We could advise you to buy a piece of land and it goes up 100-fold and you go out and buy your Bentley. You can't prevent that. It's got to be the intention of the individual and the person. Not that I'm saying there's anything wrong with Bentleys. I don't have one, by the way. But we have to have responsibility of the resources that we effectively have been trusted with.
And the other thing to add there is that once you put ownership on a piece of assets, that assets requires services to maintain it, to transfer it, to run it, to make it profitable, to keep it, whatever. So the moment you invest in that piece of land, you're going to need a gardener, a farmer, a tender, stuff like that. You invest in the community and you've created jobs in that community. You're going to need gatekeepers, logistics, sewer systems, whatever. So that's also what you do in terms of social impact when you invest in land.
Thank you. It makes it clearer. I just had to dig a little bit. That's my job. And I also wanted to add, I don't want to blow our own trumpet since they're also part of Grow My Home. But I mean, by investing or by buying or with hand in hand, and by buying something, they're investing, doing business with us, our impact desire, as you've heard in the last episode, is everywhere. So if you deal with us or people watching dealing with us, our heart is to use that money to create more jobs, to create more houses, to make more land available. And for that, we always need cash. So basically, even by transactions, we get liquidity to do more. And I know it's a bit hard to sell that, but it's from our perspective, it's the truth. So that is something you have to believe or not. But I think that definitely is. It does matter where you buy your product. It does matter who you deal with, because it also does matter which bank you give your money to, because they're all working with your money. So what we expect from ourselves, that we're working well with the money given to us, and that we make an impact also with the profit that we have and the capital we get to that. So, Grant, I know you have to go soon, so I would like to, and it's always great to get your perspective, and that you almost are soul searching every time when when we talk to you. It's like, am I really living up to that standard? Am I contributing to the greater good? And it's good. We should do that. And it's not something we just should do on a Sunday or in a quiet corner, but should also permeate our business culture, our everyday life, because that's where the rubber hits the road often, I would say. And it's not just talk. So thank you for that. I would like to end by handing over to Nissi and say, Nissi, now we talked about the general, about land, about parameters to watch out for, about social impact. Let's make it very tangible, specific. What is it? Where could our watchers and listeners invest now? Is there anything, or buy now, or be part of it now? What specific project is there on offer, so to say?
Thank you, Jonny. Our viewers and our members and our partners and people who would like to be impact investors in Africa watching this, if you would love to buy land in Africa, we have options where you can buy land for investments or for development. We have opportunities in Kenya, and we also have opportunities in Nigeria. You can head to our website at growmyhome.africa, and you will see these different options. I'll just present a couple of them, but you'll find more about this property land available on our website. So we have land in Kenya. We are doing a development in Kenya. It's called Embu Green Acres. Embu Green Acres is located in the town of Embu, which is a fast-growing town, yeah, and is the capital of Embu County in Kenya. This town is located about 125 kilometers northeast of Nairobi, and it serves as a major economic hub for coffee, tea, and macadamia farming. There's also an emerging industry. In fact, a few days ago, we read that the biggest avocado plant in Africa is located in Embu. The region is known also for its scenic waterfalls, its proximity to Mount Kenya, and is becoming a major emerging tourism hub. They say that the easiest route up Mount Kenya is from Embu. Embu is also a source of hydroelectric power. So with all these things, you can see that it's a growing city. It has an airport, and it's attractive and a healthy and decent place to live in. The property we have in Embu is subdivided into subsections. So there are sections for townhouses, there are sections for modular homes, sections for retirement homes. The plots are divided. We have 500-acre plots. We have 1,000-acre plots. 500 square meter plots. We have 1,000 square meter plots, and we have 4,000 square meter plots. So you can select a size that is suitable to the kind of home you would like to build. We design these estates to be affordable, accessible, and sustainable. We're also designing parks and recreational spaces into the estates. The prices range from about 400,000 Kenyan shillings, which is in the region of 3,000 United States dollars. So yeah, head to our website. You will see what we've got available on Embu. You can click on there. You can register. Our buying options include cash payments. That's everything all upfront. When I say cash, I don't mean cash in cash. I mean full payments upfront. And then we also have installment payments. And then we have rent to own, which allows you to pay in portions for a period of up to 5 years. So check out our website and see what we have on offer in Embu. In Nigeria, we have a bunch of properties, several properties that are available in the city of Uyo, Nigeria. Uyo is a fast-growing city in Nigeria. It's actually said to be Nigeria's fastest-growing city in the south and in the Niger Delta region. A huge amount of infrastructure being invested in the area, coming up of new refineries, airports, and so much infrastructure. So it's a very good investment purchase. On our website, we have several opportunities. We have land at Crest, an estate on the airport road, not far from the airport. We have Urban Drive on Ikotekpene Road in a corridor, in a fast-growing development corridor. We also have Akaitam Springs, which is a new upcoming development. I'll just talk about Urban Drive, but please head to our website and see the other options we have available in Uyo, Nigeria. Urban Drive is a piece of land, kind of like an estate that we have on Ikotekpene Road. This is a strategic development corridor in Akwa Ibom State, Nigeria. The plots are divided into 500 square meters each. Average price is in the range of about $1,000 to $2,000 for full plots or half plots. So full plots are 500 square meters, but we also allow them to be split into half plots. You've got a peaceful, not yet congested location in a fast-growing city. Like I said, it's high investment potential. You can also buy them for everything upfront as cash, or you can pay in installments, or you can have the rent to own options. So head to our website, indicate interest, invest in Urban Drive. Just to give context, at Akaitam Springs, this is to give you an idea of how land has appreciated over the years. We purchased a plot of land about 10 years ago. It was about 3,000 square meters. So it has about 8 plots of land. When we bought that plot of land, it was valued at about $1,500. Today, that plot of land is valued at about $12,000. So if you were to calculate the return of interest or return on investment, if we sold the land today, you'll find out that in Naira terms, that's in the local currency in Nigeria, it would be about 167% per year, whereas in US dollar terms, it would average about 45 to 50% per year. Now, we're not promising that if you buy any of our plots of land, it's going to necessarily grow at this rate. What we're just trying to say is that the rate of growth is high historically because of the demand and the population growth, and you can expect to have decent returns on investment if you invest in any of these properties. We would encourage you to continue to keep an eye on our websites. In Kenya, we're soon going to add new plots of land close to Nairobi. In Nigeria, we're soon going to add plots of land in Abuja, the capital city, and other parts of Nigeria. And there will always be more opportunities available on our website. So keep an eye, go there, look at one of the existing projects we've presented, click I am interested, and one of our team members will connect with you to give you more details and guide you through the registration, purchase, title deeds, and the payment process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just take that information, go. I'm going to put the link down there in the comment section, no, in the description section, and then use the parameters we gave you in the beginning and check us out. And no, we are not promising, just for the record, 40 to 50% every year. This was a story. This was one anecdote of what can happen. That is not our promise, because we cannot promise this, and we wouldn't. And then there's different pieces of land. If you're interested, have a look there. This is also a joint venture of Grow My Home and Hand in Hand Global. So this is something where several experienced eyes have looked at it. And Otherwise, I think we're done for today. Thank you very much, Grant and Nissi. Next episode, we're going to talk about, so, okay, if I want to do that and if I want to invest, how do I get my money into the other country and how, and even more, how do I get it back? So we're going to talk about cross-border investments and let's say, we're going to say, going global with a dime. We're looking forward to see you then. And thank you very much. And until then, have a great day and bye-bye.
Thanks, Jonny. Thanks, Grant. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.